this book is all about intimacy with God.
What would you be willing to give up to improve yourself and your relationship with God? Could you go without that morning latte? What about tossing out those sweets you so easily crave? Or how about no more sex? Hi, I'm John Marble, and this is Build Your Difference.
This is Build Your Difference, a podcast created by Blue Artists, a brand platform with one goal: to help great visionaries like you build impressive brands. Every month, we'll bring you insightful tips, knowledge, and compelling stories from successful entrepreneurs and the Blue Artists team on how to create and market a winning brand that does more than just launch a new product or service. It starts an ongoing conversation. Because you're not just making a brand, you're making a difference. Let's start building.
I definitely think our society is over-sexualized, and it puts a lot of pressure on young girls, even men and women.
Sex. I imagine most of us would claim not to have the kind of willpower necessary to completely abstain from that horizontal tango, even if only for a short while. Sexual abstinence, after all, does involve a great deal of willpower, self-control, and determination. Just ask Shea Edwards. A woman of many talents, Shea is an accomplished actress, blogger, minister, and now a writer, with her new book, Success in Celibacy, which chronicles her journey towards a life of sexual obedience through temporary abstinence, leading to an even stronger relationship with God and herself. Through her book, she opens up dialogues about sex and its role in our lives, while debunking myths about the celibate lifestyle as one of utter misery and unattainable achievement, and proves that you can still be a success, both professionally and spiritually, by leading a celibate life. Born in Richmond, Virginia, she got her start in the entertainment industry as a panelist on the BET show Teen Summit. In the pursuing years, she studied classical theater at Oxford University, and ultimately became an ordained minister, leading her own ministry, Faith Rocks, which exists to promote a personal, intimate relationship with Jesus Christ through the power of prayer and the application of biblical truths in our daily lives. Her website, SheaScottEdwards.com, is billed as the #1 destination for all things faith and lifestyle. In a recent conversation, I asked Shea about her journey towards celibacy, her new book, and her thoughts on our attitudes and perceptions about sex and sexuality as a society. Your book is Success in Celibacy, and I was wondering, for you, was there like a particular moment in your life that gave you that feeling, oh, I've got to write this book, or was it like some series of moments over time? And this kind of ties to the title of chapter 1, I think, when you talk about the journey. What was that journey for you?
Okay, well, I think in terms of knowing that I needed to write this book, after I was, in it, I was celibate for 2 years, and then I met my now husband, and we were celibate together for 3.5 years, which is crazy. And then we were engaged for 6 months. And so after we kind of got through that whole period, I was like, wow, this was really something special that we were able to share in together, and that God really gave us the strength to, endure together. And so after that, I just was like, I really think this is something missing that enough people don't talk about. And I would love to just share our story and how, we were able to do it, and just God's power through that whole journey. And so it was actually after we were married for 2 years, and then I had just had our only daughter. I wanted to create an ebook about it. And then once I started putting the chapters together, I was like, wow, this is a book. This is a full book. So it kind of happened that way.
Yeah, awesome. When I was reading through the introduction, just from reading that part alone, I can tell that there's a lot of your soul that you bear into the book, and given the topic, I, would think that it's going to be a lot of vulnerable stuff that you're going to be putting in the book. And I was wondering, was that difficult for you to be so vulnerable? And where did that courage come from,
Yes. I think by nature, I've always been a pretty transparent, vulnerable person. Just in conversations with people, I'm the type of person that's always going to sort of cut to the heart of the matter with people.
Right.
Or if someone is like hiding something, I'm going to sense it and feel it and try to make them feel comfortable enough to open up. So it sort of comes naturally to me. And then I think if I learn nothing else in all of my years of acting school, it is to really, to have no shame, to have the courage to bare your soul and your emotions and to kind of just go out there on the skinny branches, so to speak. So I think because of that type of training, I'm just always almost even hungry. Like, how can I be more vulnerable? Because I think that's what people connect to.
Yeah. And it's interesting you talked about the acting background. And it strikes me as interesting because this idea of celibacy seems like it would go in conflict with when we generally think of acting, all the things you have to do. There's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, sexuality
that oversexuality that we kind of come to expect in acting.
Right.
How did that work out for you within that sense? Was it a challenge to balance the two?
A little bit, because I think the majority of the time that I was, most heavily training in acting school, I went to Howard and then I went to UCLA for grad school right after. Like, that whole period was when I was most probably like just hypersexual in my own, life. And I talk about that in the book. So like during that time, I think I was, looking for freedom in any way possible. And that having sex outside of marriage would give me a false sense of freedom. So I was sort of in it at that time, and I was, on the wrong path. And then right after school is when I started feeling the tug of ministry. And I guess, ironically enough, that was when I also knew that it was really time for me to get serious about my walk with God and really be celibate for good and, for sure. So it kind of happened around the same time when God was sort of telling me to rest from acting and to pursue ministry. The obedience really had to kind of, step up as well. But now, if I were to go back into acting, which I plan to at some point in life, I think that it's definitely possible to be in the world and not of the world, like the scripture says. Yeah. I still don't consider myself to be a prude, I think it's,
right.
I think it's good for people to express their sexuality in healthy ways. And, I just think it's good to have boundaries. And I think that it's possible, to craft the life that you want according to your own values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just having a good sense of self-control and a strong willpower, because I think you would have to have a lot of willpower to be celibate in the culture that we're in today.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And when you were going through this transition and going into a life of celibacy there, did you see that, from your perspective, that the world was, or at least I should say, our society, our culture was what you might call oversexualized? Would you agree to that, or?
Yes, I definitely think so. It's funny because I think I have a unique pair of eyes because, like I said, coming from that theater community, it's just you're celebrated for being free, anything sort of goes. And so it gives me a less critical eye, but at the same time with the Holy Spirit and kind of knowing what God's standards are. So I can identify with, I think as a young woman, you want to be seen as beautiful, and so there's so many different standards of beauty. And in order to be seen and recognized, sometimes, you should show cleavage, or you should, do more squats, to get a butt lift. All of these things are these expectations now. And so I definitely think our society is over-sexualized, and it puts a lot of pressure on young girls, even men and women. So it does concern me. But I think what most concerns me is because there's always going to be evil in this world. There's always going to be distraction and temptation.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think when people just don't know who they are, they don't know their own value, their own worth, and how worthy and loved they are by God. I think I'm worried for those people because you just kind of are living in deception and you can't even see it, So yeah, for the people that can't see how distorted this reality is, that's what I worry about.
Yeah, and to the point you were talking about people who don't know who they are yet, that's got to be one of the biggest life challenges is figuring out who you are,
I think so. And I mean, I was on the side before of, Jesus can't be the only way to get to God. And I definitely respect, other people's belief systems. But for me, I couldn't know who I was until I knew and accepted who God was, and all of his might and glory. And as the creator of the universe and as the creator of me, I think until I fully acknowledged that and was able to say, you know what, God, I believe who you are, which means I have to believe your word. I have to believe that this Bible is the standard that you've set for my life. And in that relationship with him, he will begin to reveal who you are, out of his love for you. And so it's kind of like, how would a Barbie doll know it was a Barbie doll unless the thing that created it told it that that's what it was, So I think we just kind of have to have that connection in order to ultimately find what we were created for.
Definitely. And it reminds me that you quoted this scripture from 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18, where it talks about sexual immorality is a sin against the self and that source of personal pain. And I was wondering, how and when did you realize this was true for you personally? And when did that switch in your mind turn on and go, hey, this is not good. I'm actually doing a disservice to myself here. What was that moment for you?
It actually happened after my very first, real sexual encounter, which was with my high school sweetheart. And I had been with him for a couple of years. And I just got to the point where I felt obligated to go to that next level, despite the conviction I had that the Lord wanted me to wait, until marriage. And so after that, I immediately felt, wow, this wasn't, first of all, pleasurable. I mean, I guess that's normal at first, but and it just wasn't, I didn't feel good. I felt a distance from God immediately. And so, but I tried to push that down, and then other encounters after, it never gave me a peace or a sense of oneness with that person. It may have been physically pleasurable later, but it never gave me what I was longing for on a deeper level. And it often caused, like I said, separation from God or guilt or even depression, or darkness, because I would become attached to some of these people and it just was a distraction. So it never, and I don't think it never did anything positive for me in the real sense of, true peace and fulfillment.
Well, you mentioning how that first time was with someone who at the time I would assume was special to you, right? It was a boyfriend, right?
Yes.
And so I'm curious from your experience, have you found that the men in your life understand where you're coming from with all this? Because I know oftentimes men and women have different attitudes about sex.
Yes. Well, so I'm married now, and the person, my husband, before we met, I had been committed and really, was able to stay celibate for 2 years before we met. And so when it came to him, when I told him, that this was the journey I was on, and I had gotten to the point with my relationship with God where I was like, no man is worth sacrificing my relationship with God. I've been there, I've done that. I've always had to put the pieces back together, and I'm tired of that. I'm on this journey, and anyone who loves me has to respect that. And so thank God, he was open to it. He was tired of, the types of relationships he was having, and he was getting closer to God again. So in that situation, it really worked. But in other situations, it was actually comedic how guys would respond. It wasn't something that I would say on the first date, or even the second, but,
Sure.
guys will try it even on the first date. And it's kind of like, no, I'm not going to go back to your place, or we're not going to take things that far. And some guys would just be like, okay, sure. And they'll push it because they think you're going to give in.
Mm-hmm.
And then other guys would be like, I had one say, I respect what you're going to do, but this isn't for me. And so, we can't date. And I really respected that, because it's like, yes, I'm going to be true to myself. I know my value now. I'm not desperate. So yeah, we can go our own ways. Like, I wish you well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's good, because at least there's a little bit of upfront honesty there,
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, how was the writing process for you? Did you start with an outline? Did you just write a little bit every day and suddenly you had a manuscript on your hands? How was that?
Yes. So a lot of this book is in a sense a memoir. And so I had journaled quite a bit about just different relationships, and even, my relationship with God, and when it was in a very bad place, and, what it kind of blossomed into. So I had written a lot about this. And so what I did was I first put together an outline. I was like, what were the fundamental principles that I needed to master, or that I learned to be successful on this journey? And so those principles ended up being my chapters. And then I would just take everything, or, what I felt comfortable with from my journal, and would kind of fill in those chapters. And then I would just continue filling in the chapters, to try to make them as complete as possible. But I wanted this book to be short enough so that like millennials could read it and not, lose their attention. Yeah.
Right.
So it's a very quick read, but yeah. And then every day, or, as often as I could, I would sit up at night and just write. That was kind of my happy spot. And I'd sit on my back porch and just, write and pray for God to just kind of speak through me. And, and little steps, you come to the end finally. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And about how long was that process for you?
It really was only about 6 months. I think because, like I said, a lot of it was from my journal, and I was just really determined to complete this. I was a new mom, and I think another motivation for me was, what do you want to say you've accomplished? I don't know. For me personally, maybe it was hormones, but it wasn't enough to just say I was a mom. Now I see that that's a bit extreme, but that's what kind of gave me the urgency to just like get this book done. And so, yeah, the whole process was about 6 months.
Cool. Well, now, what was the most difficult part about writing this book, and what was the most exciting part about writing the book?
Most difficult was gauging the balance between how much to share and what not to share. Like I said before, I am naturally a vulnerable person. However, I wanted to relate to the person who maybe still is a virgin, and not be too over the top where they felt like they couldn't relate to my journey, or the person who's maybe been with hundreds of people. I didn't want them to feel like, wow, this is too cookie cutter, or, sugar coated.
Yeah.
She can't relate to me. So I think it was like finding that balance. And I had a friend edit this book for me, and she said, I need more, I want to hear more of your story. Like, don't hold back at all. And so I, just fine. Of course, I didn't spill everything, but I gave,
Right.
I can't tell everything, but I told, a good amount, to really try to relate to people and let people know that, yes, even though now, I'm a minister and I'm married and all these things, I still am very human and went through, a journey of getting to that place. And it's okay to have a journey, or to have made mistakes, or to just be searching, for something new.
Yeah, definitely.
And the easiest or the most exciting part, I would say, was really just partnering with God. I think that the relationship with him isn't something that's just so ethereal and like in the clouds and he's so far away. It really helped me say, like, Lord, you empowered me to go through this journey. What do you have, for me to say to help someone else to just gain deeper intimacy with you? And so I think it was just, I would just feel so inspired and humbled, and honored every time I would sit down to write, like, wow, like, because this what wasn't done in my own strength. It wasn't personal willpower. It was the power of the Holy Spirit, which is very real to me and something that I want other people to know it can be real for them. And so I think just experiencing that guidance and just sort of co-partnering with God to birth like a creative project.
Right. And thinking back to you're saying how you were careful not to share everything, right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, when you finished the book, and what was the response from your family and friends? Have they been supportive? Were they worried about you being so open and personal with the world?
Yeah. So my mom, definitely errs on the side of discretion in all things. I gave her a copy of the book and I said, listen, I want you to have this, but you are under no obligation to read it. I just want you to know that I've completed this and do what you want. But my feelings would not be hurt if her or my dad never read this book. If they do, great, but they have not mentioned anything about it. So either they've read it and they're still clutching their pearls, or they just have not read it. I don't know. But for my friends, I think they definitely celebrate it, and they can relate to it. And they were glad that I shared personal stories. And even, some of the women that I'm beginning to meet through this type of work relate to, that's what they relate to the most.
Right. Well, you never know. It might come up as a conversation topic over Thanksgiving. So.
I know. Well, I know. And every time, it's so much easier to write and to just have the book and you can kind of hide behind it. But when you have to talk about it, like in person with people, that is a challenge. And I did have a friend shared with me, her mom thought that it was too much and over the top. And my feelings were hurt for a second, but then I was like, this book is for who it's for. It's not for everyone, but people who want, authenticity and in this day and age, this is who it's for.
Right. And you can't please everyone.
Exactly.
So. Right. So if there would be one takeaway that you would like your readers to get from your book, like say one central message that they can take with them on their own journey, what would that be?
It would be that their purpose lies in God, and that to place their desire for intimacy with God is their highest priority in life. I think that we're all searching and longing for something, and we go to different things, whether it's relationships or distractions on social media or drugs or temptations, whatever it is, we go to those things to kind of soothe ourselves or to fill those voids. And I just want to encourage people that this book is all about intimacy with God, and how I was looking for intimacy with men and, wasn't getting, because God kind of gives us that void so that we will choose him freely and to love him freely. And so to just get really serious about having that intimate relationship with God where you realize how much he loves you, and then you begin to, really fall in love with the Lord. And when you have that relationship with someone, it's so much easier to be obedient, and to live according to that standard. And when you do that, you just have so much more freedom and peace in life, and, things are revealed to you about yourself. So I just think that intimacy with God is just the number one thing.
Right, definitely. And finally, do you have any advice for those aspiring new writers who are attempting to start their first book?
Yes, I would say First of all, your story matters. Your voice matters. Even if you have an idea that you feel has already been told or something similar, get rid of those thoughts. Know that your story matters. It needs to be told. The earth needs to hear your voice, and to have an urgency about getting your story out there. Tell your story now. Tomorrow is not promised. And with that urgency, just put some time into it every day, or a couple times a week. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and keep writing down your ideas and keep putting it together. And it will come together as long as you keep putting the effort towards it. But just know your worth, know your voice matters, and someone needs to hear it. And they need to hear it fast, so just feel that urgency and just get it done.
Right. Definitely.
Yes.
Your book is, of course, on Amazon, and I'm assuming it's on all the other digital platforms like Barnes & Noble or iTunes.
Yes, it's on Barnes & Noble, and then it's on Amazon and Kindle. And yeah, you can also get it from my website directly, but most people, I think, get it from Amazon.
Are you also offering print copies, or is it just the digital at the moment?
No, print copies as well, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Excellent. That was Shea Edwards, minister at Faith Rocks Ministry and author of Success in Celibacy, which is available online wherever books are sold. And if you have your own personal journey that you would like to share with the world, the team here at Blue Artists is ready to assist you with all aspects of the writing process, from brainstorming, outlining and layout, to editing, designing, publishing, and even ghostwriting. Don't wait. Contact Blue Artists today to learn more about how we can help you realize your vision. I'm John Marble, and this has been Build Your Difference.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Build Your Difference. If you'd like to learn more about how Blue Artists can help you develop a distinguished brand that inspires and engages a growing audience, then please visit us at www.blue-artist.com and be sure and subscribe to our monthly podcast for the latest tips and trends in brand development and marketing. And remember, you're not just making a brand, you're making a difference. Start building yours today.